The rivalry returns. At least one we like. They may say that no rivalry exists, but I know better. Gale Force eSports versus Naventic is up next. I am so thrilled to see both of these teams.
Yes, it's a new roster for one, and a new roster, I guess, for both even. Both high expectations for these teams. Especially Gale Force, time and time again, every time they used to roster swap, everybody's like, this is the new version, the one that takes over North America. Naventic, every time they roster swap, they outperform themselves, sitting at near the top of North America up until only like the last one they made. Every other version, they were at top 2 in NA as long as they roster swapped for the next 3 months. So now it's like, where do we land after all of that?
Just like with every other match, what is going to happen? How do we figure it out as you figure it out? Let's look at the standings and see what has become of No Tomorrow. And I'll tell you this, they're at the very top right now with 2 victories. Team Freedom right below them after losing that last series. Now we see who joins them in the winner's circle, or the winner's block, I guess, getting their own victory, Gale Force or Naventic.
Geometry, man. It's a tough subject, but yeah, we are here at the winner's block.
Rectangle.
The cube, whatever they're in. Either way, they sit at the top 4 now based off of their games. But Gale Force and Naventic here. If you had to choose a team you're more excited for, who and why to see play today?
I think Gale Force.
Why?
I'm so stoked to have King Caffeine, K1 Pro, and Fan back together, and K1 Pro going back to ranged.
I think I agree with you. I think that's more hype for me.
You're supposed to say the other one.
I know. That's like, if I was good at my job, I in fact go, well, let me tell you the other half. But I think I agree. It's just, there's too much hype behind it. But again, I have felt that way every single time. And so I just feel like it's hard for me to be like, you know what, this is the hype train moment. I'm behind it. I'm ready. This is the new Gale Force. Because again, it feels like they do that over and over and over again. And every time you're just disappointed. They'd reside at the 3-4 slot in North America.
But Naventic, big impact going to support. Zuna maybe going back to range. Not still quite sure who's going to play what there.
Yeah.
iDream. And we haven't even talked about iDream playing versus his old teammates in this very first matchup. There's so much to get excited about. Let's get into it. Gale Force eSports versus Naventic.
I think King Calf and K1 Pro are really solid players. They've been playing together for such a long time. I think they're the only duo that is like longer than Akaface and I. So I think being together that long, they built a lot of synergy and they just know what each other's gonna do. And I think that's really amazing. I mean, I think they're good. All I can say is free kid, man. I can't wait till we play Naventic. That is the match I'm looking forward to. First round, that's what I'm looking forward to, man. B-Kid left us to join them, and I want to prove him wrong, let him know that he made the wrong decision, because we're gonna beat him.
I love being on this team. Like, I consider Zuna one of my best friends now, and Kenma is like a big brother to me. It's just being on this team, I learned a lot. Like, that I learned, it would have taken me like eight months to a year to learn what I've learned in like the last 6 months on this team.
I'll say the one thing that our team has more than anyone else, there's no other team I think that can bond as much as us. We have a really good time. We have the players always fly over to each other's houses and stuff like just to kick it and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure our team's the only one that has that. For the qualifiers, we flew over Tomster to our house for like a month just because he was East Coast, just so we could have all 5 players on West Coast. And we just get along really well and our synergy's there. I wouldn't say us and GFE have that much of a rivalry. We did swap a couple players, but yeah, I don't think you consider it a rivalry. At least maybe later, but not right now. I don't think you consider it as a rivalry.
Not really considering it a rivalry has kind of been the common theme whenever we talk to the players, but you can't contest some of the drama that's gone down on Twitter. And now having iDream on there, they have B-Kid who had left Gale Force to go over to Naventic.
Yeah.
iDream playing versus King Caffeine, K1 Pro, teammates from B-Step, and even Fan, teammate before.
Yeah, it seems like Naventic's approach to the idea of a rivalry has been, to them, if we address it, it makes them credible. Is like what I have always viewed it. Is like, I'm a huge hip-hop fan. In the world of hip-hop, a lot of the times, if I'm the more successful artist, why would I ever list your name, ever? All I did was give you attention. So I am helping you by actually giving you that attention. So I just go, don't even see you. Literally, you don't exist. And it feels like that's what Naventic tries to make happen. But after what we've seen now, like it's gone too far. It infects the thing. The tension is there. The tweets, the drama, this roster shuffles, everything adds up to a perfect storm. And I'm ready for it to get started.
Well, let's do it then. Let's check out the Battleground pool for HGC and see where things kick off. That is Cursed Hollow. Bans on Dragonshire. Braxis holdout. Braxis continues to be a ban versus Gale Force.
Nobody wants to deal with that. Innovation brought to Braxis holdout thanks to North America. Or, gosh, Gale Force eSports brought that to North America thanks to Gale Force. I don't know. Either way, they brought a lot, and nobody is willing to dabble against them here on Braxis. But Cursed, you know, Naventic, 5-man deathball, good at teamfight. Historically, this is, again, we haven't seen the new roster, but things that they have always been iconic about them. Aggression and early game teamfighting, and just teamfighting in general. Macro play is a viable option on Cursed Hollow, a strength of Gale Force in the past, but not one of the members of old school Cloud9. They've always been actually just weak in the macro game. So now, what does that land for them? So many questions.
Maybe it's the baby bear of those two options. Too hot, too cold, just right between the macro and the micro. What I want to point out about these two teams as we get the draft underway, there is a lot of options for flexibility of roles depending on if the first iteration doesn't land. There's so much flexibility. We may see Michael Udall be on Melee. We may see Fan be on Melee. We may see K1 Pro be on Melee, although I hope not. I'll just say it. I don't want that. I want him playing Jaina.
Yeah, I agree. The first pick Tassadar, Gilly, he's here. He's back. He's going to stay. We even see it here from these two teams. Naventic going with the Tassadar. It's an open-ended pick. One, which if you're looking at the last drafts, we saw that time and time again. It's not surprising to see that. And in a new Barak, Illidan is the response for Gale Force eSports, denying one of the synergistics, forcing it into either the Holy Trinity or, in fact, going to be the Tracer.
Gale Force eSports still with a lot of emphasis on Illidan, despite how they have changed, bringing in 2 new members. Still a favorite of theirs. Team Naventic, though, big impact would have been Tassadar player. So now, who does that fall to with him being the main support?
I have no idea. I'm not even
I'm
not even gonna guess.
about this draft.
What I do want to say is that I think Gale Force has a pretty big upper hand, and they shouldn't. But I do think that Fan being at the midseason brawl and living all of those drafts, the experience, the feel, the thoughts of all the players is something that should aid the drafting of Gale Force to the point where I expect them to have very impressive drafting across the board here. And so that high Illidan there is, I think, is only going to be a test towards focusing on making sure they have global, but also realizing that things like the Falstad are not appealing options. High into the draft, Tracer and Uther are picked up for Naventic.
So once again, Task Tracer, Team Naventic also are getting Uther, so ready to team fight and brawl for days. Gale Force eSports now. What do they focus on? Is it B-Kid? Is it something, the other backliner to go along with Tracer Tass?
Yeah, it's
I don't know why I air-quoted that.
Dahaka could be a ban too, just because they do have the Illidan. Okay, the Arthas is being hovered makes sense when you have the Illidan on your side. The only reason I was referring to the Dahaka is because with Abathur gone, Illidan being a global, Falstad is not nearly as appealing in the global market, and if they view that as something that they can give them a huge advantage, that they think the macro, now with the Tracer task locked in, is the biggest avenue for them to gain an advantage, you would see the focus there. But they decide it's more about the team fighting, even banning out the Vikings, which we saw last series as an answer to Task Tracer. Commit to the TLV, try and get the split soak, the macro game advantage.
Would Gale Force still be okay with getting Abathur here?
Oh, with the Abby ban.
Oh, nope, it's banned, so
we saw that immediately.
Not so much.
We've actually already seen pretty big adjustments for the drafts of North America between these two teams. They seem more of what I expected, which makes me happy, especially knowing that these teams are projected to lie in the top 4 of North America. Well, at least Gale Force.
Statement about Naventic.
Naventic's a good old fat question mark on that one, but at least Gale Force here. Naventic has potential to lie into that.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest opponents for Naventic to getting there are themselves.
Yes, I agree.
Leeming, Greymane.
Triple squishy. Not too big of a health bar there onto the Illidan. But it's not that risky. He does draw enough aggro and into a Tracer, Task Tracer, specifically any single target burst you can have. Li Ming, Green Ming, both are very good in that. Even if you can just force a recall, it's enough. She just needs to not be in your face and have free auto attacks for days.
What support do you think Gale Force are going to want to get? They've left it open so that they can
Definitely a Mal.
potentially flex. You think
I
it'll
mean,
still be Malfurion?
So it's tough. So that one, you could make an argument as the Rhaegar.
Yeah, that's
I don't
what I was
see
thinking.
anything other than Rhaegar or the Mouth, but I would like the Mouth. I still think into Task Tracer, you need that lockdown to ensure the pick onto the Tracer. These next two might deter me from liking the Malfurion as much, but for now, just somebody who you can bank on getting some kind of CC onto her, and Twilight Dream is not crazy to rely on. It's pretty realistic to be able to hit that onto a Tracer.
Yeah, I think it feels like the difference of who's going to help deal with the opponents versus who is going to keep Illidan up and going.
It's essentially, do we want to counter-initiate and then Illidan move through the team fight afterwards to get the pick, or are we banking on Illidan opening the fight and we want to win, just never giving up momentum, not even risking it, right? So the Rhaegar is the all-in, and the Malfurion is the responsive. Kharazim is just flat different. That's if we see that pick up there. There's no way anything past that. The Kharazim, you could make an argument for just based off the raw squishies that exist, but they commit to the Malfurion. More counter momentum, more focusing on Tracer open up. Okay, here's the Dream, here's Illidan going in and getting that split macro. I like it.
He's also less of a target once he can get Ice Block at 13, so that limits who the go-for target is and make sure that Malfurion can be focused more on keeping the teammates alive. So now we have Gale Force eSports. They've brought in a lot of things that we expected from them, like they still have their Illidan, but I'm excited to see them draft Li Ming, Grey Mane. They have the double reset comp.
They've got the Anub too, which makes it, Li Ming has not got the Disintegrate counter into the Cocoon, which is a very appealing resource to have onto this. I mean, I feel like Gale Force got a little bit of everything on their draft. The riskiest part about their comp is the fact that they have an Illidan with no major enabler.
Yeah.
That is the riskiest thing. So all that comes down to is get a little bit of macro pressure, be a huge problem for the Dahaka to be able to deal with. And as long as you don't make insane hunt calls, you should be able to survive this with Twilight.
Divine Shield or Divine Storm?
Ooh,
I'm thinking Storm.
Yeah, you Storm. You Divine Storm, I think, this game too. It makes the most amount of sense. Into Illidan compositions, he's almost always on one target, and Divine Shielding them doesn't buy you enough time. It just flat out is like, here's a shield, and then Illidan goes, okay, I'm going to Q the minute that thing drops. So then Divine Storm for the CC to be able to deal with it. Tracer is not a hero that necessarily thrives with Uther's Divine Shield, which makes Storm even more appealing, and that's your main source of DPS. So yeah, I think so. I think it will be a Storm.
Well, let's get into it. Game number 1 between Gale Force eSports and Naventic. I am so pumped for this match. Let's get it started.
Here it is. In the blue is Gale Force eSports, a new version of Gale Force eSports, but one that wants to establish dominance on its territory. It's going to start out here with Mike Udall on the Illidan. Fan will be playing the Grey Mane. We're going to have King Caffeine on the Anubarak. K1 Pro playing Li Ming, and Akaface on the Malfurion.
K1 Pro playing Li Ming just makes me so excited, but here is the red team with Zuna playing Dahaka. Uther played by Big Impact, the new support player for Naventic. Tomster playing Tassadar. Up next is Muradin, played by B-Kid. And finally, the Tracer will be played by Idreen. That is also really exciting. The new members of Team Naventic.
Yeah, it makes it very difficult to actually argue that Naventic has specific roles either. With, unless you've seen the scrims of these teams, it puts it in a spot where Zuna and Dahaka, you're like, oh, so he's going to be the melee. But Tracer was picked up, which is kind of one of those, the melee or the range could play it, which could force Zuna into playing the melee. So it's actually not clear, even though we've seen this game just based on the draft.
Perfect Storm pickup for B-Kid's Muradin. So focusing on being able to stack that up. Reducing the mana cost to Stormbolt, but the big deal is stacking up damage so that he can add to the damage of his team. With that double warrior, double support, wanting to make sure that he can do his part and being able to burst somebody down. And that thing can chunk later on.
It can. And also, we've seen a lot of Task Tracer and talk about the laning phase that they end up providing. They always want to go around and gank unless they just have too weak of an early game or their opponents have too strong of one. I wouldn't argue that the bottom lane of Gale Force is necessarily extremely impactful, but Li Ming's poke alone, you want to kind of pay attention, make sure she's not causing problems. You see Mikey Doll's having a heyday there. The Dahaka into the Illidan matchup is only going to keep getting worse. Illidan will win that trade.
Steven soaking up some shots using his evasion. Naventic now considering moving out. We have a little bit of time until the Giants spawn at the 2-minute point. Who moves in and gets them first? There are a lot of murking opportunities for Gale Force eSports.
They flat out can send almost any variation of 1 or 2 heroes, and it's going to be not only fast with the pickup of those mercenaries, but it's going to be clean or quick as well. Those are the same words now that I think about that. Sorry, I got distracted about this rotation. To commit the Malfurion and a Nubrak onto mid here to stop the pressure onto bottom. Interesting. It's all just to be able to make sure they go up and help Fan. I just thought that if they were going to do that, Malf was only going to be the person who does it, and they would have done it quicker. Just all-in commit 2-man the entire time of the Giants. It's really one of those things that it's more of very nitpicky and minor, but always interesting to see how these teams play out the Giant phase.
Level 4 achieved by both of the teams. First tribute of the game spawning. Dahaka and Illidan staying up top. That is a slight advantage in that Team Naventic can bring down Dahaka to Brushstock, but at the same time, Illidan has Giants up there and can try to push along with those. So in that instance, Naventic does not want to bring down Dahaka unless they absolutely have to, or they will be guaranteed to get kills with that.
Well, the biggest problem is the fact that Mikey Doll's winning the 1v1. So the global is essentially not a global. It's just somebody soaking until they decide to burrow away, and then Illidan's going to have AD. There's no world Gale Force wants to capture this tribute. They're just totally fine with the mismatch laning of the Dahaka into the Illidan, which is why we saw that priority coming out from Gale Force saying, well, with I mean, look at it. He almost died just to go out there and clear those Giants. Now, Naventic wants to move out. No way. He queues over. Oh, man, so close. Either way, the front wall done. Like, Xeno just can't do anything.
No, he is having a rough time there, and all of Naventic are staying here. Perfect orb over the wall, not stopped by Biggie, and it stops Tomster from picking up the tribute.
I love to see already you can see that Gale Force very heavily decided with their draft early on with that high Illidan. They knew what they wanted their opponent to fall into with the Dahaka matchup.
Man, Fan has been waiting so long to do this that this is just incredible. Going back and forth and eventually finally baiting out enough. Dahaka left, brush-stalked back so that he had full health and thought the bait was there. The fact that Mikey Doll stayed, Gale Force eSports playing this extremely well in game number 1.
Yeah, they are very much. Just a 3/4 level lead, pre-10, and there's only been 1 pick. That's just flat out understanding the game better than Naventic so far with this draft. They've just made every rotation near perfectly. They have delayed everything near perfect, and they're still continuing to do so. I mean, we act as if though we have passed the phase. This is where Naventic suddenly is on even footing. But it's not. They are still getting delayed. They're still an Illidan matchup into the Dahaka, and Greymane is still buying time throughout mid. No way. They're getting a delay. No way.
Stormbolt was good. Finally, the zoning was there to block the shots. K1 Pro did that a long time. Illune's Gray's Malfurion, though, there were just so many ways to be able to stop.
Yeah, and Naventic committing that many resources for that long, it's cost them, you know? The numbers, the bars we see up on top are legitimately could not showcase why Gale Force was comfortable with that early rotation any better. And again, why we saw that high Illidan prioritization. Something that we had hoped to see a bit more out of some of the other teams we've seen so far in HGC week number 1, but it's here now with Gale Force eSports.
Caffeine dives in.
Look at
Got
that
the
body
roots
block.
Underneath too. The body block's very good. Even K1 Pro joining in.
He snapped teleported. He's like, well, I'm going to just body block this. Now, look at that. 2 isolated. The damage there. Akka not even having a chance to kill himself. He just flat out gets blown up. That's a pick. But the Merc pressure.
And it brought all of Naventic down. It was a pick that was needed, but at the same time, it's not going to do too much to alleviate the damage that Gale Force is causing.
And already, when you see that high Tassadar on any big map, he has to commit to team fighting. He can't play the macro game. He can on small maps, though. His wave clear is good enough on those small maps. The hunt, down to the boss. They're going to go for a boss tribute play here. It's going to be for free. At least for now, nobody's looking to contest it. And it's just, without the 10 advantage, Naventic can't move forward. But this is just amazing so far. I'm looking for the window of where does Naventic rebuttal. It's got to be either over the boss or the next tribute. But with how clean, Gale Force has played the early parts of this game, I'm not sold on the, Naventic hype train yet. We're yet to see anything too flashy out of them, minus just what was a over-heavy resources committed for just that one gank.
Now they have heroic abilities, big impacts considering his, between Divine Shield and Divine Storm, everything else standard on both sides.
4 down. First or second here for Gale Force eSports. It's all about the tribute in the 5 versus 5. How does Naventic play it out? Do they let Illidan be a problem in the 1 versus 1 matchup into the Dahaka? Or do they find a way to just say, screw it, we're ignoring the macro game, we're going to try and force here? Because really what we see is honestly just every time Naventic, they commit with the picks with the Task Tracer, but they don't have a strong enough laning presence anywhere else on the map for it to be relevant, right? We talk about when you go into the Task Tracer that focuses on, I want a team fight. But what if the team transitions an outward? Illidan isn't maybe a way to say, it's not a macro hero, but he can do both with the way that the meta shifted with the hunt. And that's why I think that was just such a nice pick, which has led to what is now the level lead.
Well, the commitment has been Dahaka to be able to drag along with Pulse Bomb to guarantee a kill, but as you said, it does then make Brush Shot come in, and then if it's on the other side of the battleground, like it was in the last case, then Team Naventic aren't being able to soak while that's happening, while they're also getting picks, so they're not catching up in experience anywhere. They found King Caffeine though, they catch him there, Divine Storm you can use, but he's, pre-cleanse out and Burrow charges away.
Zuna burrowed over the shrub. They want this, man. They want the pick. King K1 Pro, he teleports. He's going to be fine. Nobody's going to start the channel. Illidan's still up on top. They pop the Archon when this fight might not ever even happen. Very late. Archon, no way they lose the tribute on top of this. Uther's got the Frisbee.
Yeah, I Dreams there too. Michael Udall's way separated away from the rest of his team. King Caffeine starting to bully his way back in if he can. The positioning setup is good for Team Naventic, especially now that they get the drag.
Another
Caught
delay.
Akaface. Centigrade delayed.
They're trying to wait out the 13 talents here. The hunt moves in. The damage is there. Tracer is already dead. K1 Pro eating the Pulse Bomb Cocoon. Reveal is there. Big impact. Or excuse me, B-Kid is the target. Big impact dished out the heals to keep him alive. Another tribute here going over to Gale Force eSports. It hasn't even, we haven't even had a full team fight. It's just Gale Force going, when are they going to mess up? When are they going to mess up? Here it is. Execute.
Yeah, the patience from Gale Force, especially Mike, to walk away from the Tribute 2, even though the setup was really nice once they found Tracer and could hunt onto her, getting that kill was huge. Speaking of the hunt, B-Kid's the next possibly to fall. The Roots are immediate to follow up too. Twilight Dream, Gale Force eSports is turning this battleground blue, really red with the blood of Team Naventic.
Oh man, and there is the last tick of damage. 3 members down. You can see, we always talk about how Li Ming can just explode and open up a team fight, and how Illidan thrives in overly advantaged, outnumbered skirmishes. That team fight was just a perfect example. The 1 minute the Twilight Dream hits, Li Ming goes resets on resets. Illidan's like, I'm going in, and Naventic cannot find a way fast enough into their base, forcing the recall out of iDream there after the Cocoon combo goes down. The keep is not going to be focused though. The keep stands. Curse is still a thing. Fan, he does have disengage. He's post 13 as well.
Stormbolt there. Gale Force is separated. Akaface trying to throw out heals though, but Fan's ready to get back in. Zuna's caught. Dahaka's already down. Big Impact steps forward with Divine Storm. King Caffeine does fall, so they finally are able to get a kill and a second one with Fan. Although he's
got disengage in half a second. E? Nah, he's out. Gilly, look at that puppy. He is just standing. One Lone Ranger up on the top keep. What that does do is it forces Dahaka and Murden to never leave the top half for the next minute. Otherwise, that keep will die, inevitably. So now, Gale Force can try and abuse that and try and cycle pressure onto different aspects of the map, specifically through mid, because that force stands open up the map. The easiest, again, the low-hanging fruit, focus there, then transition the pressure onto bottom. But with those 2 members dead and feeling like they had to capture it, they're just going to capture a couple of mercs and maybe get a fort.
They can maybe push with the mercs and then get the fort, but their boss is just about to spawn too in the bottom side. So I see them trying to put on a little bit of pressure at the end of this curse and then transitioning to that boss.
Gale Force has got to be regretting not focusing down that keep here. They don't have the pressure of the catapults. They only have a level advantage. And now that this tribute, or excuse me, curse has happened, and they aren't getting anything out of it, they just wasted all the work for those first 3 tributes. The experience now is slowly weighing back into the favor of Naventic as they have Dahaka with the side soak and the pressure out. We have a game on our hands because no keep fell. It's still going to be, yes, an advantage for Gale Force eSports, but Naventic can totally swing and never let control go back over to GFE now at this stage of the game. They have the comp to do that.
And they can be okay with sitting around this boss knowing that there aren't catapults in the top lane that eventually would have to be dealt with. Although, in having Dahaka, they can keep someone there until the very last minute when they have to rotate in. Gale Force eSports are slightly ahead in experience. Keep out the soak in the lanes. Maybe they can get guaranteed boss with their 16.
For now, Naventic is going to try and get any experience they can, which is off the mid gate and up in front wall here. They get it. Still a ways away. They need this experience. The boss, they're all moving away. Gale Force, they're going to start it. Do they move back? Dahaka's now showing up on top. Illidan's still showing up on mid. So now here comes the scout. They're trying to feign it with Illidan showing onto the map. They know. The Tassadar reveal is there. Oh gosh, 16's here for Gale Force now, Gilly.
Stock is there. So Naventic has now brought down Zuna too. King Caffeine sees this. Illidan cycling around.
They can't let this diaggro. Gale Force wants to keep this boss alive. Oh my gosh.
Nobody's hitting it.
What? They can't take this fight now. Dahaka just side soaks till 16. They have to all in. Yeah, that's it. Okay, they move past the boss and they all in.
Following up, Cocoon there.
The hunt?
Nobody's letting them burn it down. iDream in trouble from the Disintegrate too.
That's that.
What did they use? They use Cocoon, they use the hunt. They can get the hunt back up fast. They'll have Curse Bullet back. But they made both Avatar and Archon be used. So those are far longer cooldowns.
The boss is going to be re-aggroed again. It leashes. 16's here for Naventic. They have 3 heroics. 2 of them very high impact. They're down 1 that's not that impactful. The other is, but it's only pressure onto the Murden. So lack of Avatar, as long as B-Kid does not just go in and die to the Cursed Bullet, I think Naventic wins this fight now.
Stock, there's Zuna way in the back line.
Maybe not. Drag.
Drag.
That's not the time you want to ice block. Does he Twilight after? He can't. The Divine Storm, the damage, and now that is the pick. 1 for 1. Uther is the one dead, though, so Naventic has a huge advantage here.
Gale Force still trying to force this fight. There goes Illidan hunting back away, so now King Caffeine and Fan need to get out if they can. Drag holds King Caffeine in the fight. Team Naventic claim 3 kills in this game, hoping for a 4th, diving underneath the fort just to take out Fan.
Team Naventic. The fact that they were able to get that fight, oh man. It's sad to say that this keep now is finally going to fall. But the fact that they held their composure, you know, Gale Force did a lot of things really right, but they retreated appropriately. They took the only fights that essentially Gale Force is giving them that they can risk major advantages, and Naventic is winning every single one of those. If this continues, this is Naventic's game. They've got a boss, they've got a secondary boss, they've got a curse lined up in the next, what, minute and a half? That's a boss curse pushed out. There's no huge global, or at least absolute global on the side of Gale Force by only having the hunt, which means you can manipulate the map very effectively, unlike you can versus the Dahaka.
Naventic gonna go for the boss first. Whoops, I just punched my microphone. Sorry about that. Nope, Tribute far away.
Everybody should be on boss. Dahaka be the only one who goes to the tribute. You have vision of 4 members. So now you know Gale Force is committed. Naventic knows 100% the rotations, so they're going to go for boss only. They aren't even going to risk any of it. That's okay for them, because again, they really don't need to risk anything. Gale Force wants this fight. So they can take the boss, they can walk top, they can push the fort for free. That's the only thing I want for this C from Naventic here, is to make sure that top fort dies with this, especially with the Giants and everything pushing out. And as long as that happens, they've secured more experience in their favor. They can get the 20 advantage through mid-fort. Gilly, I'm thinking Naventic's got this. The game is still so in their favor. They're going through top.
They have the experience advantage. They are going up in the top. B-Kid is anchoring, but Gale Force is moving up the safe way, although I'm concerned about Fan. Okay, no, we're still going the safe way. Gale Force can deal with this really fast, though. Unless Naventic gets in there, which they're starting to do.
So this is why Naventic just forces this fort. It's going down. Now back out and rotate towards mid. And then they go mid. They get the fort there, and that's more experience. That's what I'm saying. They can play the 20 game because this boss has to draw aggro, but they have to rotate out. And they're doing it too slow, so they won't have the 20 as fast. There is a window where Gale Force can defend over mid because of this rotation on the side of Naventic is so slow. If they rotate mid, all in this fight, Gale Force has an opportunity, but otherwise you can expect 20 advantage with a curse 100% for Naventic.
It is really close, and Gale Force is not moving there extremely quickly. Oh man, worst of luck for Naventic. Did you see them pump the brakes? Turn right around. So attributes here, but Gale Force don't have 20 Naventic. Very close to having it.
If Gale Force takes this fight, they're going to give it up. I love this. Okay, so if Gale Force risks that fight, they can lose the game.
Yeah.
Just flat out. If they don't risk the fight, they can get a lot of side soak. They can catch up to 20. They'll lose 100% one keep. But then past that, it's all what they decide to do and how much experience they can actually recover in that amount of time. So here's the cycle through mid. Gale Force has got Greymane side soaking one, Illidan side soaking the other.
Last fort falls. Gale Force defending at mid. Dahaka spots the top and moved in, but it's only Dahaka. The rest of the team, Naventic's trying to take down mid if they can get a keep.
Yeah, you notice actually even Zuno for a moment they're ignoring, just flat out ignoring his minion wave. He's just trying to push up there as fast as he can, get as much pressure onto the keep front wall as he can. He's got 20 seconds remaining. Gale Force still grasping, but because Naventic is not 5-manning with this curse, they aren't getting a keep. They get the root, a lot of damage, guarding the Ancient King proc though, so iDream's fine. No way, Gilly.
There's just not a whole lot of siege there, especially when they're, like you said, not grouped up. Now they're grouping up. There is a slight amount of time where Team Naventic have level 20 still up over Gale Force eSports, but this keep is still pretty healthy.
It is.
They made it all the way through that curse without losing a keep. That is huge.
Huge for Gale Force. Absolutely colossal. They now have pressure onto the map. They have the winning 1v1 with the global trade. They've actually got the only keep down in the game, and they've managed to somehow, what was originally where I looked at Gale Force and said, you wasted your curse, Naventic didn't gain much out of it either. They got a fort. A late game curse got a fort with a 20 advantage on the side of Naventic. So now Gale Force just wins? I don't know. I don't actually know. The lack of siege on the side of Naventic is definitely a problem.
Yes.
But it was only exaggerated by, again, the lack of group.
Yeah, it's hard because Dahaka threatens the drag, but he was also known where his whereabouts were by Gale Force eSports that entire time. Just wanted to get a second pressure on two different keeps at once, but in effect getting neither of those. But now, there's a boss, and very well could be the last boss.
There's going to be a lot of posturing here. Both teams are afraid to be able to get this one up. When looking at the other regions of the map, Naventic's boss is going to spawn in 25 seconds up on top. So that means that this is the only one to even consider for a long while. And then also due to the lack of siege available for Naventic boss racing, it's just you either fight them over this one or you just don't touch any of it. They're going to start it once more. I mean, this is the win condition because both teams are so far away from curses, right? So it's like, again, we know it's hard to find win conditions on this map. It's either curse or it is in fact the bosses. And with no curse available for such a long while and Naventic not getting the keep, Gale Force just wants to abuse their keep, stall out the game. They're going to hunt.
They're going to hunt on top of Zuna. Zuna is out of here. Twilight Dream drops 2 on the rest of the members of Team Naventic. Now Tomster goes into Archon. Akaface uses Ice Block to get rid of the Pulse Bomb. Dodges the Divine Storm, but Malfurion still goes down.
K1 Pro has managed to make his way out of the fight. Now Naventic's B-Kit. He leaps over the wall. He's got so much damage. The CC's there, and now that is Mike Udall. Though Gale Force eSports, in fact, blew up Zuna before adaptation could even be essentially effective. Naventic's the one turning these fights.
What I loved about the start of that, though, is the race car Dahaka was forcing all the members of Gale Force back, but Gale Force were able to take advantage of the fact that Naventic was spread out into a line. And for a long time, Akaface survived, but taking out the support enabled the ability to take down one of the squishies because there's so much relying on Akaface as Malfurion. Uther drops, but he does have a lot of heals, and he'll come back with redemption.
Yeah, that was definitely... That's one of those situations where it's like, ideally he doesn't die, but he wasn't afraid to just because sustaining his death essentially goes, we are 100% going to get this boss now. And it moves in towards the keep here of Gale Force eSports. They bought a lot of time. Malfurion will be alive. Illidan will be alive to be able to stop this. This tribute will be Naventic's, and so will be the other boss. Gale Force has a chance where they can leave Illidan on the boss and maybe risk all 5 rotating. But if they were going to do that, they needed to do it exactly like now. And they are not going to, so it's just going to be a stalled out, clear on clear.
But does Naventic push with that boss now?
Yeah, yes, Gilly, 100% they should.
Right,
Will
they should, but do they? That was my question.
Anytime we see Naventic with a style comp, their thought process right now, their win condition. First of all, Archon's still a thing.
Why? I was wondering that too.
Is he going to sustain that all the way?
It's not like it used to be.
No, it's actually possible to lose it. Does he get it? Yeah, he's fine. Never mind. That's crazy duration. My goodness. All right, what they do, you go here. The minute the boss touches the keep, you go all in on Illidan, Leeming, or Greymane. Leeming or Greymane are probably your best two. You don't do Malf because of Ice Block. You don't do Illidan because of his ability to dodge things and just be tanky.
Leave Tomster
So
the
move in.
sidewalls, please. Okay.
Now go. You just dive past the keep.
Root catches Calf.
Then now Gale Force is going to wait for the keep to die. They walk past the boss, and this is where they have to force.
Oh, Fan up there, but the rest of the team is not. Takes so much damage very quickly, but Twilight Dream catches Tracer. Tracer has to recall out, but Greymane is down. All of Gale Force eSports hoping they can tie that up with another kill of their own, but Divine Storm catches Illidan.
They get the damage out there, and Akaface is going to freeze himself a bit of time, but in the end, he goes down. This is Naventic taking game number 1 over Gale Force eSports here in phase number 2.
Team Naventic comes in. They have a role swap. They have a roster change. Works out for them in game number 1, but I still think this could be just like our last series, go all the way to game number 5 based on how that game went.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that that game is only going to show that these two are going to be very, very close. It's going to be highly contested. But what I take from that game is Gale Force may have 2 new members, but they suffer from what feels like a lot of the same problems. The lack of pressure that North America seems to apply is just biting teams in the butt over and over and over again. And they have to do, like in that game, that was definitely theirs up until a certain point. They take the 2 fights that they can't, they risk everything in that game to go back. Naventic takes it, punishes, and then has an opportunity to win. And they never let go. I feel like that slow play of Gale Force is going to bite them. Tempo was worse, but Gale Force struggled from it.
It's just weird because Gale Force had such a smooth, clean early game in how they played things. And what is the mark that puts them into near turtle mode, where all of a sudden, is it just you get so far ahead and you are like, now we can't lose this lead?
Identifying what your actual win condition is, not just your lead. Like, you have to have the foresight, especially on maps, Tomb and Curse Hollow specifically. You have to think 3 minutes ahead. That is why I'm always talking about, well, when's our next tribute? When's our next boss? The minute you fail to do that, you're like, oh, the boss is up in 20 seconds. They snap take it. That's game. I can't stop it. You have to think 3 minutes into the future. And if you don't do that, you can either get too much too fast, use it all, and get only a keep, and then you can't end the game unless you have a crazy composition. Tomb has the same problem. You're like, I can have all the gems in the world, but if I don't use them at the right time in the right cases, I can't end the game until the boss fight starts, until that panic moment. And it all started at top keep. That failure when I was like, they aren't going to focus it down. You aren't retreating from that fight. 0 chance. So might as well 100% get the keep. They all run away. They stagger the deaths. And it isn't until 7 minutes later we find ourselves with Mikey Doll backdooring it after they lose a fight.
Yeah, there were definitely still some big picture shot calling things that Gale Force has to work on, but that's sort of been just Gale Force in general, and really even, like you said, North America in general. I also saw some things synergy-wise that obviously they're still working on, like every other team pretty much in North America, because every team except Tempo Storm has gone through a roster swap. So we know that they're going to be working on those things too, but the beginning was really pretty for Gale Force eSports. Naventic, though, they have had more time together. They have had a lot more time because Fan was at the mid-season brawl. So there is still some adjustments to be made there.
It's a good point, too. Like, Fan essentially had 3 days of practice at most with Gale Force eSports, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's just, I thought for sure 2 members getting changed out. There's no way we see that same trending from them, and it makes me very scared looking towards the rest of it.
Well, but the members that were changed out were not involved in the shot calling process.
I just, usually that impacts communication enough. When people look at a shot caller and they're like, oh, you run the show. Not the case. Like, it's everybody has an influence to a certain point. He's the last voice. So even though the last voice might be the same, usually the angle and different approach and thought process to those things is enough to be like, you know, well, we'll do this a little bit different. We'll do this a little bit different just off of, again, the input that you get to choose from. You get to select, in my opinion, better selections on communication.
Well, then there is also Team Naventic now. Obviously, Zuna worked really well for him to be on Dahaka because he could just pick who the target was going to be and take them down once he was... Like, there were some stocks that were definitely early on, maybe not the most impactful, but later on really good for the team. They were able to pull it back, win game number 1 versus Gale Force eSports. We want to hear from you guys using the hashtag HGC. You can tweet at us. We have a tweet we can actually check out right now when we get ready for game number 2. BC Loomis says, IDK, what's more exciting? Gale Force versus Naventic rematch or the possibility of Dread with half blue, half red hair for BOE Pride?
I'm going to have to go with the latter. That's pretty dope. Half blue, half red.
Immortal style?
I mean, it's every Heroes of the Storm match, I feel like, just in general. The only way that could get really awkward, though, is if you actually dye the left-hand side red and the other side blue. And then so you walk up everywhere and it's backwards. And you're
that's what I was saying. It has to be left blue, right red. But then when the camera's looking at you, does it need to be backwards?
I'm not bright. I'm too simple for that one. I'm not bright enough lad to be like, you know, the switch, convex, vave, you know, I don't know.
Were those words?
I know.
Okay, battleground ready between the teams. Let's just move off of that issue.
I was trying to say convex